Donniel's wisdom on these unprecedented historic times. So grateful to Amy and Brian for always just leading our life-giving, life-affirming connection to Hartman Institute. So grateful to Talia Graff, Hartman's Director of Northeast Programming, who's also here from New York. Talia, welcome. And mostly grateful to Donniel and to Karma or to Hashem or for whatever noun you want to pick that would have you speaking to us on this Sunday morning, the 10th of January, after this historic week. My only comment by way of introduction is we are so bewildered by what happened to our beloved country, and we would love and appreciate your wisdom, Donniel. Thank you so much for being here, and especially thank you so much for being here now.
Thank you. My pleasure. Is that me? It's my turn now?
You're on.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be with all of you and to share a moment, as Wes said, of pain, bewilderment, and struggle to understand what not both what it means, but also what obligations does it create? What should I do? Because like many of you, but by me it was Wednesday night, I was sitting here in this room and watching, and I kept on calling people and saying, are you watching the news? This is unbelievable. And this word repeated itself over and over again. This is unbelievable. And a lot of people weren't watching because it was 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Unbelievable. And I kept on saying unbelievable. And I began to realize that there was a deep dread taking over me. And I don't get frightened. Not because I'm very brave, I'm not, I'm a chicken. But I have a phenomenal defense mechanism. I have a phenomenal defense mechanism, which I've developed over the years, and it was one of the necessary things that I needed to develop during my military service, in which I know how to control, I make sure that I don't feel frightened because I have things to do and things that need to be done. And I began to feel this deep, deep unsettling as I watched the mob. And I don't live in a consciousness of anti-Semitism surrounding us. I've never lived that way. I was raised to ignore anti-Semitism. I was raised in a family where we never talked about the Holocaust either. We just didn't. Because I was raised in a world where modernity was good. Modernity was enlightenment. Our job was to bring Judaism into modernity, in which case the negative hue of the Holocaust just had no place in my upbringing, and we had no family members. We all came from Israel, and we had no family members. My father's family moved to Israel. We discovered in the 17th century. So it wasn't part of my story, and it enabled us to think about modernity and positive things. But as I was watching, I began to experience not what I saw as an act of anti-Semitism, but what I saw as an act of the uncontrollable crowd. The crowd that is not guided necessarily by a plan, but by mass mutual reinforcement in which you go as far as you can go. And we know when mob mentalities take over. And I went to sleep with the term, this is unbelievable. And what I would like to talk to you today, and I've been thinking about this since Wednesday, is I want to talk to you about the category of unbelievable. What does it mean? How do we use it? How is it important? And how is it sometimes very destructive? And in particular, I began to realize that maybe one of the great flaws of the last 4 years is that I've been looking at things going on in America, as many of you have, and please remember, you're not here for Donniel to endorse this side or that side. It doesn't matter. Also, the elections are over, or at least I hope most of you recognize that they're over. Or at least I will assume that for the context of this talk, the elections are now officially over. That I've been using the term unbelievable a lot. And is it possible that the use of the term unbelievable actually allows things that should be unbelievable to be very believable and to penetrate into our lives in ways that we don't control and we don't fight sufficiently against? Is unbelievable a necessary category psychologically, but one that politically and morally could have very serious consequences? And I started to do a very deep cheshbon nefesh, and you know the term cheshbon nefesh, personal reflection. And so I'm sharing with you these initial reflections that I have. This is not something that I've been thinking about for years and working and testing before I brought it to you. These are very raw and partially flawed. But as Amy, Brian, Wes, Donniel, talk about what you're thinking about. And so that's what I was asked to do, and I will do so. Let's step away from Wednesday for a few minutes. And let's think about, when do we use the category unbelievable? We use it for positive events, and we use it for negative events. But paradoxically, we use it in opposite ways for positive than when we use it for the negative. Now, there are events that are truly unbelievable, that are shocking. But part of, in general, all our language, words don't mean the same thing they used to mean. When we use the term, oh, my grandchild is unbelievable, and we have a deal. I get, for every one unbelievable that I get, the other person gets to give me back an unbelievable, because you can't, because your relationship is completely over. If you're the one who has unbelievable and they have normal grandchildren, that's not the rule. So it's one unbelievable story to your one unbelievable story, and then there's detente, and we could suffer each other. And many of you are smiling because you know exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly. My grandchildren are unbelievable. Oh, I had the most unbelievable trip. Or this moment was unbelievable. This lecture was unbelievable. The purpose of the term unbelievable is to direct a projector of our consciousness onto that moment so that we will give it special attention. Because the believable tends to often be mundane. Now, there is a problem with it, and sometimes we don't like to see the beauty in the mundane. Like even the term, it's normal, it's mundane, it's plain, it's like parav. So sometimes the only time we can get really excited is when something is unbelievable, and then the thrill, the specialness, we almost become drug addicts. But let's leave that aside, that negative component. The primary purpose of this category and this wording is to say to people, shh, it's like a speed bump in our conversation. Stop. This is not one of those, no, this is unbelievable. This is special. This deserves your attention. And unbelievable becomes a way to transcend everyday events and focus and also celebrate, learn from, look at, love, cherish. Unbelievable in the negative has, I believe, very often the opposite effect. There is the unbelievable, the person who's warning, and the job is to warn, to change people, to wake people up. But very often, as we use the word, it actually serves to enable us to believe that the status quo and the myth of stability, which we have in our lives, could be maintained. Because this event doesn't change the status quo, it's unbelievable. And as a result, outside of the normal domain. As we've talked about with many of you for many years, human beings breathe and get up in the morning by creating a myth of stability. No, not all human beings. This is principally a feature of Western liberal, successful democracies and countries. We like to believe that the people we're going to meet are basically decent people, people who are law-abiding, moral people, who believe in the rule of law, who accept argumentation, that conflict is resolved through conversation, that I could drive in my car, and if I hit somebody, I'll get out of the car and I'll apologize and we'll exchange insurance forms or numbers. No one's going to shoot me. That if I say to somebody, hello, how are you? They're going to say, fine, thank you. We have thousands of these, thousands of them that we put and fill our lives with so that we could actually feel, yeah, life is normal. Life is fine. Life is safe. That the valley of the shadow of death, it might be creeping underneath, but this myth of stability lets us push it aside. And then from time to time, events push through. And we can't maintain that myth. Trauma or PTSD are when the unbelievable, the trauma doesn't stay within the exception, but actually penetrates into your life on an ongoing basis, and you can't push it aside. Where you can't sustain your myth of stability because you saw something, you experienced something, and life doesn't feel stable anymore. Your ability to maintain that myth is no longer possible. The category of unbelievable is essential for this myth of stability. And it works exactly the opposite in relationship to negative things. Because instead of trying to focus a projector on the moment, the category of unbelievable enables you to keep your projector on the status quo. Oh, this is unbelievable. It's unbelievable what's happening in America, because in Israel, we won't have that. Or it's unbelievable, that's not America. That's why I have an assumption. What is America? America is stable. America is not a mob culture. America is a democracy. America is a place where people don't have to be frightened. America is a place where it is the place where democracy is stable and protected. Because that moment is not America. That moment is unbelievable. And so we have these two different places. We have unbelievable, which is meant to focus your attention, and unbelievable, which psychologically enables you to go to sleep. Now, in religious traditions, this dual use of unbelievable falls under the category of the holy and the profane. Not really the profane, the impure, excuse me. Not kodesh v'chol, but kodesh v'tum'ah. The holy and the impure. Those are both categories for experiencing the unbelievable. Religious tradition wants you to experience in your life the unbelievable, in which the unbelievable is very often principally the divine presence. It's how could you, as a human being, actually believe that God lives in your midst, that God walks with you, that you could speak with God? To create that experience of the unbelievable, we use the category of holiness. And we could have holiness in space, and we could have holiness in time. Holiness in space has numerous rules, especially when you speak about the temple, about who could come in and who was not allowed to come in, and under what conditions do you come in. And you create separateness from it, but the purpose of the separateness is not to be separated from the holy. The purpose of the separateness is in order to enable the experience of the holy. So if I want you to feel that a certain space is holy, I tell you, no, you don't go in. Only the priest goes in. Only they, after certain rituals, and you regulate it. And thus you're able to feel that, yes, when I look to my left and my right, not everything is the same. Yeah, that's a holy place. And through a process of specialness, of separateness, we enable the unbelievable to be a part of your life, and we call it holy. And you celebrate the fact that you can have that experience. In time, we do it even more through rituals, which the purpose of which is to break the status quo. That's what Shabbat is. Shabbat is what we experience most often, but all of our holy days are basically ways in which you break the status quo and you enable and challenge a person to enter into something which is different, in a certain sense, unbelievable, other. We do that through rituals such as Kiddush, where you separate, special clothing, unique rituals. And in this way, the holy enters into our life. And the idea of the holy is that we want your life not to be just permeated by the daily, but by literally the unbelievable. There is another unbelievable that we designate as impure. The most significant unbelievable is death. And death is a part of life, but it's not. There's my status quo, and through numerous rituals, no, death is impure. You can't touch it. It causes separation. There's other types of impure, blood, and also certain opinions or things that you're frightened of. You say, no. There's our universe, and there's the universe that I want to be separated from. And so sometimes our tradition separates you in order to put a focus on something. And sometimes it separates you in order to protect you and to ensure that that X doesn't become what your life is about. That your life is an embracing of life and certain ideas and values. And that which undermines it, that's impure. Just like unbelievable, the category of holiness and the category of the tameh, the impure, play that similar role. Now, in our lives, the term unbelievable has a paradigm. The paradigm unbelievable for the Jewish people since the 20th century is the Holocaust. Prior to that, Jews always had other unbelievables. Unfortunately, we had numerous unbelievables that we had to deal with. And by referring to the Holocaust as unbelievable, Jews were able to live their lives. See, because if the Holocaust is believable, what do you do? What am I supposed to do? What am I certainly am not going to live in Newton. If the Holocaust is believable, where do I go? Oh, Israel. But Israel needs the world. Israel wouldn't survive. Israel doesn't. Okay, now we found some gas, but still, it's like, if it really is believable, if this is something possible on an ongoing basis, give up, convert, leave. We need the Holocaust to be unbelievable in order to be sane. We also develop categories of holiness and categories of impurity when it comes to the Holocaust. When we speak about the Kedusha, the holiness of the Holocaust, we speak about the uniqueness of Jewish death and suffering. And we don't want anybody to compare anything to the Holocaust. Don't talk to me about the Holocaust. Don't tell me that Rwanda. Don't tell me that the Palestinians. Don't tell me Black Lives. Don't compare anything to the holiness of the Holocaust. And historians will analyze it and prove that this is different. It's not the Armenians. It's not only quantitatively different, it is qualitatively different. It is a completely different category. The Holocaust, our death, is holy. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Don't compare. Don't you defame the memory of the Holocaust by comparing anybody else's suffering to it. Holocaust also has the impurity. And the impurity is personified by the evil of the Nazi. And here too, we want it to remain unbelievable. And you're not allowed to compare anything. You're never allowed to say, oh, he or she, they are like a Nazi. If you say that, then someone will get up and say to you, how could you say that? This is a sui generis, it's unique. Nobody is like them. No evil could ever be compared to the Nazis. And here too, how could you compare? And you call Israel a Nazi, you call Trump, you call America, you call this person or that. Nobody. Don't call them, because again, you're profaning, because the job of holy and impure is to maintain something as unbelievable. And any and every comparison pales, because really, if that's the unbelievable, you have to maintain it as the unbelievable. But one of the things that we've done as a result of this holy and impure discourse regarding the Holocaust, keeping the Holocaust as the essential unbelievable of Jewish history, enabling us to have a myth of stability. You have to realize what we have invested in here. Because as long as the Holocaust is completely unbelievable, I could live in America. I don't have to be constantly panicking, living with all my money in a bag, with a gold bag in I could actually have a normal life. I could have a business. I could have children. How could you have children if the Holocaust is not unbelievable? How could you remain a Jew? But as a result, one of the things that's happened is that the Jewish people have led the cause I want to be really precise here, but it's just, I haven't spoken about this enough to know that I'm being precise. This is the first time I'm talking about this. We have caused the Holocaust in a certain sense to become irrelevant. We're holding it, we're protecting it. We're protecting the holiness of Jewish death. We're calling the Nazis unbelievable, never to be compared, so that we could get up the next morning. But in many ways, it's impossible as a result to learn anything from that experience. You can't. Because if that's the unbelievable, then that has to stay by itself pure. All you can do is declare holy, 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 or distance yourself from it. You can never say, one second, is there something that we could learn from it? I know the Holocaust is unbelievable. And I know that no moment compares. And that no evil that I've encountered, either or seen or learned about, could compare to the Nazis. But there are things that happened that I would want to learn about. I would want to learn how a civilized society, in a relatively short period of time, could be dominated by a politics of fear. How could a society in a relatively short period of time, one of the most scientifically and sophisticated societies, completely give up on notions of truth and allow its categories of truth to be compared, to be controlled? How could a society with the most advanced society for the protection and care of animals in history suspend their moral discourse just like that? How could people of conscience be silenced just like that? Now, it's unbelievable, but something happened. Now, when we want to learn about the dangers that these events and phenomena could generate, where are we supposed to go to? What are we supposed to reference? North Korea? Mussolini? That's not the fascism we're frightened of. That's all. I could read, 1984? Okay, so you could talk to 20 people. Reference, run a book club. This was the experience, or a dominant experience, of fascism in our lifetime. And when it is unbelievable and either holy or impure, all we could do is be silent. And then as people, how could we learn from history? How could we learn? Now, there are no two moments in history that are the same. And this is certainly the case, that there are no two moments that are similar to either the Holocaust or to Nazi Germany. But as I was saying unbelievable on Wednesday night, I was realizing when it is that I use the category of unbelievable. What's the category of unbelievable? When something's unbelievable, in a certain sense, I don't really have to deal with it. I just have to quiet it. Just have to quiet it. And here, I know I'm not here to debate you, and you all know that I always say that I know what it is that I know, but I never claim that which I know is true. I know how comforting it is to take Trump off of Twitter because it enables us to maintain our myth of stability. The problem, it was just Twitter. If we just take him off Twitter, we solved the problem. It was Twitter. It was Trump on Twitter. Take Trump off Twitter, then we don't have the unbelievable. Now we'll have our status quo. Oh, and take him off Facebook too. Life is good. Life is good. I'm not talking about whether in the short term you should quiet an account. I'm talking about the concept. Because if it's unbelievable, we just have to remove it. But what happens if the Holocaust was believable? What happens if fascism is believable? And what happens if the extreme events or the unbelievables are actually the product of very detailed, believable actions and decisions? And for 4 years, we've been calling certain behavior unbelievable instead of saying, 1 second, this is believable. Now, how do fascist regimes take over? Very often, you need to instill profound fear in people. And as a result, you often have to control the military. And if you don't control the military, you create a very powerful paramilitary, hopefully with very distinct dress, who the mere visual already communicates. Just the visual, the uniform, the way you walk, should already do 90% of the work. If you want to control what people know, and you want to be the source of truth, you have to get rid of freedom of press. You have to limit public discourse. If you want to control their morality, again, you can't allow for debate. And you have to ensure that you are able to inspire enough of the mob and the fact that human beings are social animals to control each other and to move us to a place that they themselves don't even know where they're going. Now, what happens, my friends, if you can do all of that today without having to resort to any of the unbelievable things that normal fascist regimes had to do in the past? What happens if you don't have to control the press? Because I'm shutting down the press, that's unbelievable. What happens if you don't have to do that? What happens if the nature of the way human beings acquire knowledge today and the algorithms, and here I'm getting a little bit into Micha Goodman's territory, so I'll leave that to him. But the algorithms of social media activate and manipulate your fear. What happens if I don't have to shut down your discourse? I just have to train you to consume your knowledge from a particular place that both reflects your worst fears and reaffirms your greatest nightmares. And now I don't have to control anything. In an exercise of First Amendment, you psychologically undermine free discourse. And we can turn to the left and the right. And as I was watching the mob, and I was looking at them, and again, we all have different assessments of what was happening and where they were. I saw a group of people. Did I see a group of people? All of them had a plan. Did they know? They were fed 4 years. And slowly but surely, 4 years in which truth was not truth, science wasn't science. Truth was what served a certain political leader. Moral responsibility to protect your country was defined by what that leader said. And you see a group of people who are marching. Where to? They don't even know. Maybe they do. But way leads to way. Where would it stop? Nobody knows. It's not unbelievable. Wednesday was unbelievable. But that unbelievable was built by very consistent acts of believability that we were amused by. We complained about. We argued against. But we didn't develop an effective way to combat it. I don't know how to combat it, but I know I have to stop using the category unbelievable. Because by making it unbelievable, I don't have to take a certain president seriously. I don't have to take a party seriously. I don't have to take an opinion seriously. It's unbelievable. Oh, it's unbelievable. And here in Israel, similar. Oh, it's unbelievable how this how the interests of one prime minister could completely dominate. We're now on our fourth. Oh, it's unbelievable. But what happens when your prime minister is intimately connected to a major part of Israeli society's myth of stability? He's their myth of stability. How discourse, conversation. Oh, of course. Listen for it for a second. This will sound familiar, but sometimes talking about someone else's problems make you feel better. A chief of police appointed by the prime minister. Attorney general appointed by a prime minister. Prosecution appointed by the prime minister. 10 years of judges appointed, the majority of the Supreme Court appointed by the prime minister in the ruling power, have all somehow created a cabal. Obviously, not like, is it QAnon? Is that the way it's pronunciated? Obviously, it wasn't a cabal to develop pedophilia, but a cabal to fight against one man and to everybody together. There's a conspiracy, all of it. Now, we haven't developed a way to create a political discourse which stops the unbelievable. And what we've allowed is a lot of believable things to happen. We have to, as people, look at our greatest nightmares, our worst experiences, and ask what we could learn from them. What we need to learn from them. Now, is this the same as that? It never is. But that's not the point. The point is not that it is the same. The point is that, unfortunately, our myth of stability is a myth. And unless we understand that it's a myth, the unbelievable will become our reality. And with this, I want to open up for anyone who wants to talk or reflect. I'm not here to claim that everything that this president or that president did is destructive or not. That's what's good for Israel, bad for Israel. That's, the nature of a true democracy. The nature of a true democracy is the right and the need for us to disagree and to debate. And that as a people, we Jews stand for the rights of people to be different. As number says, we are Am Levad Yishkon. We are a people who dwells apart. We are a people that dwells apart. If Jews have taught anything to anybody in history, is that you don't create unity through uniformity, that society requires of you to accommodate difference. Because otherwise, we are either the subject of attacks or we're forced to assimilate. We're not going to heal America or heal Israel with the victory of one idea. And that one idea very often is the one that you happen to hold. We don't believe that that's the way you heal a society. Difference, as I've taught you, doesn't undermine a community. It's how you respond to difference which undermines it. It's not the radical vilification of the other right now that's going to be helpful. Even though when certain moments happen, you have to call it for what it is. But our challenge is to stop with this unbelievable, to stop trying to remove it by small little, okay, if I could impeach him, he'll never run again. America is safe. America's safe. If I could get him off of Twitter, oh, America's safe. Then all of a sudden, all of his followers will now become liberal Democrats. Oh, it's always solved the problem. Something is broken in most democracies in the world. None of us know how to heal it, but we start a process of healing when we recognize that there's a problem. And when we can look at it straight in the eye and we can say, yes, this is our problem. And I would say to you, even as Jews, we have a unique responsibility because the most significant moment of fascism was one that we experienced, but it is the most important reference point for dangers of fascism in our life. And I know it's fraught with danger. And you just mention it, and somebody, especially if you suffer, whether you're defaming, it's just, it becomes poison. But what happens when we are silencing it, even for ourselves and our community? In Leviticus 19, it says, you shall treat the stranger like a citizen, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. And I could hear there a bunch of people turning to Moses and saying, Moses, how dare you compare our slavery in Egypt with the strangers who lived amongst us? How dare you compare? We have captured the land and God is on our side. We are so nice to them. How dare they killed us? They killed our kids. They made us this. They enslaved. How dare you compare? That's not the way you grow. We're not historians who are meant to ensure the historical parallels. Our job is to learn from one evil so that we could undermine the existence of another. Let's start that process. I could tell you, I feel that I've wasted the last 4 years. Wednesday night was a wake-up call. Wednesday night was a wake-up call because I found myself in a place that was unbelievable, unprecedented, never saw such a thing. And I realized that there were actual very, very specific things that we could identify. And the most important of which is, how do we ensure that there are open channels of conversation, open channels of learning, open channels of discourse? How do we break through the silos of identity politics, the silos of the cancel cultures, in which I ensure that whatever it is that I know, all I hear is what reaffirms it. And whatever it is that the other one thinks that they know, all they hear is what reaffirms it. And then where are we left as a society? My New Year's resolution is to use the category of unbelievable less. Because the status quo is really not true. There's a lot of danger out there. And the human beings do have an inherent capacity to evil, to get lost. And we've created a society which can reinforce it. So let's realize that it's believable. And then let's get up. And even though it's negative, let's actually put the projector on it and begin a discourse on how we could heal our society, how we could heal our moral failures, how we could heal a mob mentality, how we could heal the fact that truth doesn't matter. America is bigger than that. Israel is better than that, but it will only do so if we realize that it's believable. And now, questions, comments, please.
Wow, thank you, Donniel. That gave us a lot to think about. I'm going to call on people and unmute you or unmute yourself to ask the questions. And I'm going to give the honor of the first question to our newest member of Temple Emmanuel, and that would be Nathan Cates. So welcome, Nathan, and please ask Donniel your question. Okay, and if Nathan can't unmute himself.
I have it, Amy. Sorry.
There you go. Great.
Thank you, Amy. The word we've heard so often used by journalists here is unprecedented. We all understand what it means in a technical sense, but I wondered if you had some thoughts about the difference between unprecedented and unbelievable.
When you use the word unprecedented, there was a skit on Wolf Blitzer using the word unprecedented. It was this, I think it was in Saturday Night Live, if I remember correctly, but I'm not sure where it was, where every day he was talking about the unprecedented, it was not even this unprecedented moment. Someone was counting how many times he said unprecedented. Now, it's like, now what happens? It's very similar. For me, I just played on the unbelievable because that was my term, but it's parallel to unprecedented. Now, there are just technical differences between them, but in both of them, the usage is that we have our normal life, and this is like unprecedented. Now, there's a lot of similarity between them. I wasn't making any conceptual distinction between them, just using the term that I had myself used. And I have a bias against unprecedented, not because I'm against Wolf Blitzer, but because he uses unprecedented ad nauseum. Is that okay, Nathan?
Thanks, Donniel.
Absolutely. And my younger adult son has said he's heard unprecedented ad nauseum this week.
That's right. Yes, Amy.
Steve Gelda.
Hi, Donniel. Good to see you. So I have a question about respectful dialogue. I saw the faces of the people pushing past the police in the Capitol. I've seen those people my entire life. I'm sure you have too when you've traveled across America. These are people that, given permission, will come to kill you. No question in my mind. How do I have a respectful dialogue with them? That's part one. And part two is, I'm glad that you drew the analogy to the anti-democratic forces in the United States, to similar forces in Israel and, as you say, in other parts of the world. And what's our obligation as Torah Jews to confront those forces? So one, how do I deal with the person coming to kill me? Because given permission by the authorities, we saw that they'll do it. And how do we combat anti-democratic forces in our two beloved countries?
Great. Thank you, Stephen, and nice to be with you as well. When somebody's coming to kill you, defend yourself. It's not a time to talk. It's not a time to talk. But I have to tell you, and again, we're all just, I'm not speaking fact. I'm just giving, we all have different perceptions. I don't feel that everybody who was there on the Capitol Hill was there to kill me. I don't. Some of them might have been. Some of them might have been, but not all of them were. If I would have encountered that guy with that fur thing, I would not sing, I have a question I want to ask you. This is, could we just sit and have a respectful dialogue in the spirit of Hillel and Shammai? But part of the process is to make those distinctions, Steve. Is that because some are that way, that doesn't mean all and even most. Now, it could be that my myth of stability is again fooling me. It's possible. But in my encounter, not everyone who is a Trump supporter, not everyone who believes even that the elections were stolen is out there to kill me. And making sure that I make those distinctions enables me to begin a process of healing with those who I can. There are people who I can't heal, I know. But there's a difference when certain behavior is on the fringe and certain behavior is at the core. And part of when a society breaks down is when we allow that mentality. Every group, they almost create themselves and become your own self-fulfilling nightmare. That's the work we have to explore. Could be, Stephen, that you'll turn out to be right, and then you got to move to Canada. Everybody's nice in Canada. Could be. You don't stay in a place if you believe 70 million people want to kill you. You don't. So, but it behooves you to check. And part of what happens is that through the words of unbelievable or unprecedented, we silence it. It's like when the elections were over 4 years ago, there was this new tribe called angry white high school graduate men. Like somehow if we could just give them a little bit of this, it would all disappear. We belittle the complexity of the other. And when we belittle it, we don't engage in rectifying it. We either belittle it by calling it unbelievable, and therefore it's not even worthy of discussion. So part of what I'm saying is if you get rid of that, then we could begin a process of exploring. And I don't know where it's going to go. And when it comes to Israel and the United States, it's similar. It's similar to the Yigal Amirs or the Baruch Goldsteins or the Meir Kahanas. I don't talk, I defend myself. But the question is, are all the people equally my enemy? Or is there work yet to do? When you are in a society, the meaning of collective loyalty is to fight to create that dialogue. If you feel it's too late, then you move, Stephen. That's the time, then that's no longer a country for you. It's no longer a country. If the fringe is now half of that society, then I don't know, then move to California and secede, or whatever it might be, or Canada. Do you understand? There's a moment. I'm not saying that there aren't those you can talk to. But I believe that we have to do much better. As we know, the Pew surveys, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Reds and blues don't marry each other, aren't friends with each other, don't work in the same places with each other anymore. In Israel, it's a little better. In Israel, it's in the family, so it's not as juxtaposed. But America's gone to a bad place. And I think it behooves all of us to at least try to save it. Because where it is now, in these silos, it's just, okay, you want to be right, be right. But if you want to heal a country, I think you have to explore something different. Anyway, those are, again, I'm new at that. We're all new at this, Stephen. And our experiences are different. And I experience America 3 months a year, or at least before Corona. I don't experience it 12 months a year, but I travel to 30 different countries and I'm in airports. And so we all have our different experiences. And that's where I want to, that's where I want to, I'm suggesting that we start. I hope that's okay, Stephen. Do you feel I answered?
I do feel you answered. I was not really trying to paint everybody who voted for Trump
I know you weren't. I know you weren't.
I do think, though, we have to be real about the people that are
That's correct.
hell-bent on destroying us and destroying our country.
I'm all with Stephen. I'm 100% with you.
I think we're
I'm
on the same.
100% with you. 100%. Thank you. Yes, Amy.
So Donniel, I want to be respectful of people's time. So I'm going to turn to Wes to ask the last couple of questions. But just before he goes, I want to say thank you. And I want to remind people to please join us again next Sunday for Micha Goodman to talk about his new book. And also to say that Donniel is speaking at through the Washington Federation this week. There's a lot going on at Hartman this week. So check the Friday Hartman at Home email and make sure you click through to the Hartman events. There's too much going on this week to miss. So please go to that. And I'm going to turn it to Wes to ask the final questions. Thank you.
Yeah. So Donniel,
Hi, my friend. Hi.
Yeah. First of all, I just want to say I love you.
Oh,
I love you and we love you. And having your wisdom and moral perspective and thoughtfulness is an inestimable, precious, priceless gift. And we cannot thank you enough. So that's the first thing.
Very much.
Second thing, I just want to offer a specific thank you to you because you adverted to this, but this is no mean feat. What you did for us was all new, right? I mean, you have a number of lectures that you've given, that you could give in your sleep. And you didn't do that. You came up with a whole new thinking about a whole new category for this moment. And we're grateful for that creativity and adaptability and thoughtfulness. Last point is my question to you. Before Wednesday's insurrection, you were slated to talk about where is God in these dark times. And thankfully, you changed and adjusted to deal with this new moment. But I actually want to come back to that, not for a whole lecture, but for a last question, which is, where is God in all of this? And how can God be a helpful category as we grapple with the category of unbelievable?
As a rabbi, my natural instinct is to say, oh, I have a whole lecture to give you on that subject. We know each other. So you screwed me up, Wes. You started by being so nice to me, and then what did you throw at me? You threw at me. Each one of us with our own.
If you can't answer it, I understand that. But if you just like a thought, the great lectures, and yours are always the best, leave us thinking. How can we think about God in this moment?
Now, it's very interesting. One way of looking at the category of unprecedented and unbelievable is those are secular tools to reaffirm a status quo where one of God's central roles in religion is to do exactly the same. Belief in God is what enables you to maintain your status quo, because the unbelievable God will protect you from or direct towards your enemy. Remember that the text that we were going to learn, if you're on God's side, you get to live in the Garden of Eden, where everything is given to you in bounty and comfort. Everything is safe. That's what God does. God is the protector of the status quo from the unbelievable. God is the unbelievable par excellence, and your unbelievable is only of a certain type, that which is beneficial. The evil, gam ki elech begates al mavet atai imadi, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are with me. That's what God gives you. God gives you that feeling that you can wake up in the morning. And religion says to you, you access God to just do this mitzvah, do that mitzvah, go here, come to shul, listen, go to Wes's Talmud class. If you just do that, then you have that's status quo. Part of the categories that we're facing now are secular ways of maintaining that status quo. And the one thing that I would say about God, and again, it depends on your theology, obviously, is that, I've always believed that God helps those who help themselves. And very often we turn to God when we feel completely incapable. And it's understandable at this moment to feel incapable. It's very understandable. It's understandable to feel frightened. But at this moment, there's a tremendous, I don't know where God is, but I want to know what work we have to do. And there's a lot that we can do. And I'm telling you, I really feel this so deeply. I haven't found a way. I know how to talk to those people who agree with me. How do I develop the tools to talk to those people who disagree with me? So I can tell, I know that in Israel, I've started, whenever I speak politics, which references this or that, I always say something nice about Benjamin Netanyahu. I've created a halacha where I force myself to say something nice. I force myself to say something positive because I want the other person to feel that they're in the room, that I see them. I'm trying to take responsibility, not for their closed-mindedness, but for my closed-mindedness. I want to ask myself, what are the truths that I claim to be so self-evident that might be much more complicated? I watch and regularly follow today 12 news sites simultaneously. Being ADHD, that makes it easier for me. Normal people might find it difficult, but I have it, for me, it's just a breeze. And I follow those sites that I know I disagree with because I want to understand. I also came to discover that some of the sites that I am most supportive of, they too don't distinguish between news and editorials anymore. When you understand, there's stuff we got to do. And when we come to that conversation with a little more humility, and here, put God out of it for a second, we have a little more humility, then maybe we invite the other to be a little more humble. And maybe we're not going to agree. I don't want to get rid of disagreement. I don't want unity through uniformity, but I hunger for, my fellow citizen to re-engage and to talk and to find those people who want to harm me, get rid of them or protect myself, but all those others, let's create another space. And so I don't know where God is, but I know where God shouldn't be. Where God shouldn't be the solution. We have to be the solution.
Thank you, Donniel. Amazing. Thank you for your Torah. Amy and Brian, thank you for bringing Donniel's Torah. And all of you on the screen, thank you for listening. And we all have so much work to do. Lots of love, Donniel. Thank you so much.
Be well, people.
Bye.
Thank you, Donniel. Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.